Sup guys, this is gonna be a fleet building video for the Arbiter hard mode strength, which is a heavy cruiser Arbiter. This month, the Arbiter doesn't really have any annoying skills, so if you could beat the last one, then you should probably have no issues with this one. As a quick side note, I made a Q&A post that will be answered in a couple days, so check the community tab if you want to ask me any questions. Okay, back to the topic of the video. First, I'm going to talk about the boss. It deals a lot of damage against your vanguard, but barely any to the main fleet. Two of its skills just increase its damage output against your vanguard, while the third one is a shield that lasts for 15 hits, so a couple of destroyer guns should take care of it quite easily. The unique mechanic that strength always has is that it summons a shield which blocks 150k damage at 37 seconds remaining in the fight. When you're using weaker fleets, you're not only going to have trouble eating through that huge shield, but also building 4 different vanguards that can last the entire battle. To kill 2 birds in one stone, the strategy that I use when I use weaker fleets is to maximize the amount of damage that I deal up to the shield being deployed, and I don't care much about my vanguard surviving past the shield, because you won't get much out of it anyway. Now, let's take a look at the fleets. This time around, I'm using a bunch of ships that I haven't really used before, as well as the PR5 Fate Sims and a couple of new augments. As always, the point is to take the ideas I use and then apply it to what you have in your dock, which is likely a few rainbow ships that are much stronger than the ships I'm featuring. But maybe you won't have as much plus 13 equipment as I'm using. I'll use a couple pieces of rainbow equipment, but to only ones that are permanently accessible, and nothing rainbow and plus 13. I'll also be leaving my fleet tech on this time because it simply takes too many clicks to turn it off and on, but no officers will be used. There is a mix of level 120s and 125s, but for your own clears, do try to use as many level 125s as you can. I will also be using submarines as they contribute significantly over the course of 4 fights, especially for weaker surface fleets. You can get away with not using submarines if you have stronger ships than the ones I'm using, but if you can't beat the Arbiter solely because you neglected your submarines, then that is your problem. And I would just like to remind you that the Arbiter is a Siren, so you can take advantage of the fact and use PR ships for the free 15% Siren Killer bonus, especially if you're lacking in plus 13 equipment. If you're dripped out with plus 13s though, it won't make a huge difference. Now I will talk about the fleets and how I chose the ships for each one. Like I previously mentioned, I wanted to try out some of the new stuff that I haven't gotten an opportunity to yet. In the first fleet, I wanted to test Rupee with her Fate Sim, so I put her along with her sister Odin. I chose Akane as the last ship just to test her out. She actually prefers the flagship position because the bomb she fires is fixed in front of her, but luckily the AoE of the explosion is so big that it ended up hitting the boss anyway. In the Vanguard, I'm using Haguro as my main tank, who is probably a bit too squishy for fights like these, but as I said before, I don't care about surviving past 37 seconds remaining, so she'll do just fine. And in the other 2 Vanguard slots, I'm using Emden and Voroshilov just to buff the battleships. In the second fleet, I'm using a carrier fleet starring the recently fate-simmed Chkolov, as well as the other PR carrier, AVP. Illustrious deals good damage with rockets against medium armor enemies, and helps the Vanguard survive, so I thought this was a good opportunity to use her. The Vanguard is very simple with a tank and 2 other ships that buff carrier damage. Very similar to the previous fleet with a tank and then 2 ships that buff battleship damage. After that, I'm using a USS carrier fleet, and I've just recently made unique augments for both Saratoga and Montpellier, so I'm featuring them. Northampton's slow when triggered by Independence did not line up well with Enterprise and Saratoga, but the boss actually stops moving every 20 seconds or so. If you take the time to line up your airstrikes correctly, you don't even need a slow for your normal airstrikes at all. And finally, we have an Italian battleship fleet with the PR light cruisers, including the recently Fate Sim 5 Harbin and Def 30 Shimanto, although not yet at level 125. Tamaki counts as an honorary Italian with her green hair. As you know, I'm European, and every single time I've come across an Italian person, they've had green hair without exception. Next, I will talk about the equipment I use for each fleet, and then show them in action. I'll be using some plus 13 gold equipment, and occasionally plus 10 rainbow equipment. The plus 13 equipment I'll use is going to be ones that you should be prioritizing for the most part, so if you don't have them already, then you should work toward getting them as soon as possible. Since the enemy is medium armor, you should be using good AP guns on your battleships. I'm using champagne guns because they're both widely available and good against both medium as well as heavy armor, which makes their use cases a lot broader than some of the other guns. The auxiliaries don't matter too much as long as you use shells or high performance fire control radar. I'm using high performance fire control radars to better line up with Voroshilov's 18-second debuff, and shells on Akane because she has slightly higher reload than the other two thanks to her unique augment. The Vanguard equipment is focused mostly around survival. Don't forget to pass around your powerful unique equipment from fight to fight, including the Beaver Badge and Pearl Tears. Now, let's see the fleet in action.
ぼちぼち働いてやるっすよ。もはやバッチリ狙ってハグロの動きは見切れないっすよ。帰る場所などあるまい。仲間を守れるなら幸運じゃなくたってもはや帰る場所などあるまい。解けなさい。もはや帰る場所などあるまい。バッチリ狙ってやるわ。ハグロの動きは見切れないっすよ。ハグロの動きは見切れないっすよ。
I summon my submarines at around 52 seconds remaining so they can fire off the first round of torpedoes before the shield spawns, and then hopefully the Vanguard will wipe before they surface so they don't get deleted instantly. In the second fleet, I'm using standard planes for single target nuking, while avoiding rainbow equipment. Independence is using Flapjack and Wyvern because I'm too lazy to switch for equipment, but the combination of those two planes will help your other two carriers remain concealed. If you want, you can definitely put a rocket plane as well as an aim torpedo on her. We are once again maximizing for survivability in the Vanguard. Montpellier with her unique augment is quite tanky, although definitely not enough to survive the entire fight, but we don't need that in this instance. Quick reminder that the new light cruiser gun from the points drop of the new French event is the new second best light cruiser gun after the Plymouth gun. And now, let's take a look at the second fleet in action.
海の平和を乱す敵。海上騎士団、進軍。ユニオンの戦士たち、命を燃やせ。どこ見てるの？こっちだよ。そこ。狙い定めた。そこ。どこ見てるの？こっちだよ。そこ。狙い定めだよ。そこ。プラン B もバッチリだからかかってこいや。終わりだ。こっちだよ。それでどうかな？着火よ。集中しろ。狙い定めだ。どこ見てるの？こっち ちだよ。そこ。どこ見てるの？終わりだ。こっちだよ。そこ。狙い定めた。見えた。そこ。全力を尽くして負けたのだ。悔いはないさ。
In the third fleet, the carriers are following the exact same logic as the previous fleet. Ideally, you want to have your airstrikes go off at the same time to take advantage of AVP slow, but I couldn't be bothered because it won't make a huge difference against this boss in particular. The Vanguard is once again focused on survival. Note that the Snow Globe auxiliary on Anchorage is not the best auxiliary for her, but as I said before, I don't really care about surviving past the shield being spawned for this fight in particular. I'm using the triple mag torps on Scylla to better line up her debuff with airstrikes. And now, let's see the fleet in action.
時々現場に出なくちゃね。私から逃れられない。逃げないでくださいね。逃げないでくださいね。聖なる光よ、私に力を。ここは通れないよ。聖なる光よ、私に力を。逃げないでくださいね。心配はいりません。ご主人様、聖なる光よ、私に力を。ここは通さないよ。立場をわきまえず申し訳ございません。
So as you can see, I've done enough damage with the first 3 fleets that the last one won't actually have much to do. So I will engage a full HP boss with the last fleet just to show its performance. As for the equipment, I am once again using the champagne gun, but also 457 on Vittorio Veneto, so she can get off the 3rd shot with her first shot cooldown reduction. In the Vanguard, I'm using standard survival equipment except for the Oxytorp on Shimanto, which is not necessary, but there's no real reason not to. I forgot to replace Mainz' rainbow gun with a gold one, but if you use a gold one, it really won't make a difference in the overall scheme of things. I would recommend the twin 150 SKC from Gear Lab if you have it, but if not, the Seattle gun will do just fine.
こちらの足を引っ張るでないぞ。サディア帝国の力を見よ。これでも食らいな。
式神水流、力を次元せ。
今だ。
いいところ見せてあげる。いいところ見せてあげる。
兵装が作動しないだと。
私の力にひれ伏しなさい。これでも食らいな。式神水流、力を次元せ。
今だ。
いいところ見せてあげる。プラン B もバッチリだからかかってこいや。いいところ見せてあげる。
これでも食らいな。
私の力にひれ伏しなさい。ここは通さないよ。今だ。力を次元せ。いいところ見せてあげる。式神水流、力を
やれるもんならやってみな。
いいところ見せてあげる。
これでも食らいな。力を見よ。
私の力にひれ伏しなさい。
やれるもんならやってみな。
ちょっと力不足って感じね。
And that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you found it informative, and best of luck in your Arbiter clears. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.